Hey, what's up guys? Protune here for Kriscoart production. Today we finally get to do some explosions, and it's gonna be through the eyes of a drone hitting its target in a city. Pretty scary stuff. If you look at some of the footage online, even on YouTube, I had to watch plenty of those clips and footage from drones for reference to kind of recreate it in After Effects. And some of the stuff that's going on in the world, it's pretty inhumane. But that's a completely different topic for a different video. Today we're just gonna be looking at how to recreate the effect right inside of After Effects. Let's just take a quick look at the HUD. It looks complicated, but it's actually really simple. All it is just a few text layers and a few solids. So let's go into the HUD composition. You can see this is a solid, that's a solid, this middle thing is a solid, and that's pretty much all there is for the main HUD. Everything else is just text layers. For the text, actually I'll let you guys know what font I used. Actually don't remember it. Okay, I used VCR OSD Mono. If you Google that name, you should find one of the websites that hosts it for free. So if I solo my footage, you can see that it's just normal GoPro footage on a Phantom. You can see part of the drone here. We actually kind of lost control of the drone because it was really windy that day. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to start from scratch with a completely different shot so we can build this effect from the ground up once again. Similar concept here. I still have my GoPro Hero 4 on a Phantom, so the GoPro's facing towards the ground and it's just hovering over this neighborhood, which actually happens to be my neighborhood. This is where I live. This is the apartment complex I'm in. So let's jump right into this and let's create that thermal vision effect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to search up curves. You can do the same thing with levels. Now the main thing that you want to do is you just want to get rid of that contrast. You pretty much want to flatten everything out as much as possible, and that looks sort of okay. You need to think in terms of what it would look like if it was in thermal vision. So let's add a tint effect right underneath that curves adjustment, and you can see that we're kind of starting to get somewhere. In some cases you might need to invert the colors. So if I look up the effect invert and I drop it in before the tint effect, that inverts the colors, but it doesn't really work for our example because you want to keep in mind that the brighter colors are always going to be the warmer elements in your shot. So a rooftop is usually going to be maybe warmer or just as warm as the pavement because the sun is hitting on it constantly. So for something like this, inverting the colors doesn't really work. So let me go ahead and delete that because as we're looking at it right now, this kind of makes sense because you can see that wherever the sun is hitting the pavement directly, when it's not obstructed by trees or clouds or anything like that, it's actually brighter, which is what it would look like, or pretty close to what it would look like with thermal vision. In my other example, if I go back to, now if I show you my adjustment layer in this shot, you can see that I actually had to invert the colors just because this made sense to me. The pavement is hotter than the cars because of all the cars going on it, and maybe this is winter. So the buildings have heating inside, and that's why you see it that way. I'm not sure if it makes too much sense, but it visually looked correct this way, and that's why I decided to invert the colors in this shot. As far as the distortion, all I did was type in TV in your effects and presets and drop in one of the presets that says bad TV 3 weak. So if I add that in, it's a little too extreme, way too much fuzziness going on. And to get rid of that, just get rid of the wave warp. Go ahead and select that and delete that. But with leaving everything else, you get this nice digital video look to it, almost like a security camera, and this could also work for that. The next step is making the explosion, and unfortunately to do that, we're going to have to start with something that we all hate, which is tracking. It can get really annoying, especially when it works against you and it doesn't do what you're wanting it to do. So a lot of frustration with tracking, but we're going to be using Mocha. Most of the times I've had very pleasant experiences with Mocha, and it does an awesome job at tracking. The only issue with Mocha is that it doesn't really handle certain formats too well. So if it's not importing your footage correctly, or if it's doing some weird error messages, it's probably because it doesn't support the codec that your footage was shot on. What I do to avoid that at any time that I'm using Mocha is pretty much have the portion of the footage that I want to track. So in our case, it's the whole. And I go under File, Export, Add to Render Queue. And what I do is I make an image sequence. So I'm going to do, you can either do TIFF or PNG. Make sure it's just RGB, no need for RGB and alpha. And then click OK. And then what we're going to do is let's go ahead and make a folder. New folder, tutorial track, and we're gonna save our image sequence in there. So go ahead and click render. Okay, so we're both gonna be sitting here and watching this render for 33 minutes. No, just kidding. Okay, and it's time to import that image sequence that we made. So let's right click here in this area, go ahead and go and import. You can also go under File, Import, File, and all you need to do is just look for that folder, grab the first frame, and then make sure that that checkbox on the bottom that says PNG sequence is marked. Go ahead and click open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this over and create a new composition. So now we have essentially the same thing as this minus the adjustment layer, but this is not a video, this is just a sequence of images, which Mocha handles a lot better than, you know, let's say an MP4 or MOV. So with it selected, let's go under animation and track in Mocha AE. So once the program launches up, I'm going to put this to 0 since that is my start frame and that is my end frame. So we want the whole composition and everything else looks right. So click OK. And if you did everything properly, you should have the entire composition right into Mocha. So let's go to our very beginning here and let's start to create. Let's create just a basic shape. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and get just this area right here, or we'll just track this thing, I guess. And right click to close that out. So once you're happy with that, just click this button right here, track forward, and let Mocha do its thing for a little bit.
A few moments later.
It took a while, but it's finally done tracking. If you have a slow computer and you're trying to do something like this, there's nothing wrong with downscaling the video to a lower resolution just for the tracking, because as you're going to see in a little bit, we're only going to be using just the movement data pretty much from this shot, and we're going to bring that information back into our main comp with our original footage. I'm going to go down here where it says export tracking data. I'm going to click on that, and what I want to select here is, if I open up this drop down window here, we have a few options. After Effects corner pin, that really works well if you're doing something on a surface of a phone or something like that, or even something like this. It works really well, but for now I'm actually only gonna get the position, scale, and rotation. So I'm gonna copy to clipboard, then I'm gonna go back into After Effects, and let's go to our original composition, and I'm going to create a new null object, and I'm going to hit Command V, and it's going to paste all those keyframes from Mocha into this null object that we created in After Effects. So if I hit U on my keyboard, we can see that we have the position, the scale, and the rotation with keyframes. Alright, so let's get started on that explosion, shall we? Now I'm going to be using a pack of stock footage called Shockwave. It's from videocopilot. Essentially it has a bunch of really awesome shockwaves. Some are a little bit more sci-fi and futuristic. There's a couple organic ones, and there's some nice smoke elements that I'll be using for this example. Let's drag that shockwave smoke element into our composition. Make sure it's below the adjustment layer. So let's push this in time just a little bit so it doesn't start right away. And there's a few things you can do with this. You can set it to screen, and that does a pretty good job already. The next thing that we're going to do with this layer is parent it to the null object that we created so that it's going to stick to the ground. And I always want to make sure that everything is working properly before I move on, so I just want to make sure that that looks like it's sticking to the ground. So I'm going to RAM preview this real quick. Alright, so we only need a couple seconds to see that it actually is working pretty well. So our explosion is looking pretty good, but you also want to make sure it looks good with the adjustment layer with all the corrections on. I want to add some fireness to this blast at first, so I'm going to drag an element from Action Essentials 2. It's again from videocopilot. It kind of seems like I'm sponsored by them or something, but I really am not. Match it up to the center of it over here. And we're kind of cheating it. This explosion isn't filmed from the top, but it's one of the ones that works best. And if you do have the pack, it's Fireball Debris 01, so you can get the same exact one. I'm going to add a quick mask to the bottom of this so it doesn't cut off so much. Okay, feather that out a little bit. And another thing that we want to do is we want to make that explosion really bright. Remember, we're looking at this through a thermal vision camera, so that fiery explosion is going to be really, really hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some levels to this, and I'm just going to brighten that explosion up, and also make sure that that is parented to the same null object as the ground smoke. It does look pretty bad actually at first. You can clearly see that it's cut off, and it's pretty unnatural at first, but it doesn't matter because the whole thing is going to be covered by a really large flash. So to do that, I'm going to create a new solid, make sure it's the comp size, and I'm going to add effect, videocopilot, optical flares. I'm using optical flares, and again, this is like the third product from videocopilot that I'm using. They're just that great, but I'm going to show you a different way to do this without any plugins, just in case you don't have optical flares, so no worries. So what you want to do is just clear out whatever's in here and just start from scratch. Go to lens objects, and we just essentially want to create a nice little glow. You can add some of this dirt, bring the brightness down a little bit. Yeah, let's do this. That's good for now. So make the color nice bright white, click OK, click OK. Now set that layer to add, and now that lens flare is over our video. So if I move that to where my explosion is, you can see the effect. Also, you want to make sure that it is below the adjustment layer. And to make this a flash, you pretty much just want to animate the brightness. So right at the point of impact, then go back a few frames, maybe like 3 frames, and set that to 0. Then go after, maybe like 6 frames after, and also set that to 0. Now another thing to add more impact to the whole thing, when the flare is so bright that you can't really see anything, we might as well just cut all these layers in so that you don't see them before the impact. So let's run and preview this to see what we got. Alright, so that's starting to look really, really good. That flash definitely sells the effect. So that's as far as I'm going to go with the explosion. You get the basic idea. You can obviously add as many elements as you want. You can even animate these cars moving around and reacting to the explosion. You can add more debris. You can add burn marks. At this point, you have the tracking data to really add anything to this ground that you want. And then as finishing touches, you can bring in the HUD on top of everything. Actually put it below the adjustment layer. And there we go. That's pretty much what I did for the original video. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit that like button. And if this is your first time on my channel, please hit subscribe. My name is Protune for Kriscoart Productions. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.